My MIL hates our daughter's name and tried to rename her at her own birthday party. Now she's threatening legal action to get her way. Both me, 28F, and my husband, 30M, are from Latin America. We moved to the UK shortly after we had our eldest, 5M. Our daughter, who turns 1 in April, was born here. My mother-in-law, 60s, and my husband's older brother, 37M, neither of whom have met our daughter before, are flying over for her birthday. Bill wanted to get a hotel room for himself, and Mill doesn't speak any English, so we decided to have her stay at our place instead of leaving her alone in a foreign country. Years ago, when I was pregnant with my son, my husband and I made the mistake of revealing his name to our families. My MIL spent the next months complaining about it. She'd send us lists of name suggestions, look up bad historical figures with the same name as the one we'd chosen, and just generally say it was awful. She didn't stop until our son was born and the name was on his birth certificate. So for my second pregnancy, we decided to keep our daughter's name a secret until after her birth. We figured that not knowing her name until it was unchangeable would stop MIL from complaining. We were wrong. Our daughter's name is Cecilia. Minutes after she was born, my MIL called my husband and asked, "You know Cecilia means blind, right?" Almost a year later, she hasn't stopped complaining. If it's not because of the meaning, it's because it's ugly, long, or an old lady name. There have been occasions in which my husband sent pictures of her to his family's group chat, and his mom replied with stuff like, "How cute. Too bad her name is Cecilia." It genuinely feels like my daughter is being bullied. Whenever we talk to my MIL, which has been happening less and less lately for this exact reason, she has a new complaint. Up until now, the main reason I was able to kind of tune it out was because she hadn't complained to us in person or in front of our children. But she'll be here in less than 2 weeks, and I'm absolutely certain she'll continue her crusade at our home. I don't want to hear it. I don't want my son to hear it. And I don't want my baby's first birthday to be ruined by grandma's bitching. So a couple months ago, my husband and I called his mom. We told her she could no longer stay with us and to ask Bill to help her get a hotel room. We also told her the reasons behind our decision. Mael cried on the phone and has called us several times since. She always either apologizes, calls us dramatic, or accuses us of alienating her from her grandkids. Throughout all this, she continues to insist she has the right to dislike our daughter's name and still hasn't booked a hotel room. My BL agrees she's being a dick, but is upset we told her she can no longer stay at our place. He's accusing us of forcing an elderly woman to stay alone in a foreign country even though we're perfectly capable of housing her. He's also mad that after promising for months that MIL could stay at our house, we're retracting our offer. This whole situation has been exhausting, and I'm starting to worry I might be overreacting. Ada. Update. 1. Hey everyone, it's been a while since I posted, so I want to give you an update. I'll try to be brief. For the next couple of weeks after my first post, MIL continued her attempts to convince us to let her stay with us, but still refused to book a hotel room. My husband and I decided to speak with Bill again. He told us that the main reason why he wanted to get a hotel room for himself was to explore the city on his own, but could understand why we didn't want MIL to stay with us anymore. Eventually, he agreed to help her get a different room at the hotel he'd stay in. From what I gather, he also spent the weeks leading up to the visit telling his mother that if she tried complaining about Cecilia's name at any point, he would call a taxi to send her back to the hotel. Cecilia's birthday went off without a hitch, except for the fact that MIL immediately tried to give her a nickname. For a few hours, she kept calling her Lila. She was doing so behind our backs, and my husband and I didn't realize it until our son came to ask us if Grandma knew Cece's name. My BL offered to call the taxi, but we decided to brush it off. Later, my husband pulled Mill aside and said that if she ever tried to complain about either of our children again, she wouldn't get to visit us anymore. She behaved herself until she and Bill flew back home, and we haven't heard any complaints from her since. I'm very satisfied with this outcome. Though I'm still worried she will complain about my kids again in the future, I now know that we have my husband's brother by our side, which will greatly help us navigate our relationship with their mother. Also, kudos to those who brought up Simon and Garfunkel's Cecilia. Though I love that one. Our girl was actually named after a song by Brazilian singer Chico Buarque. I couldn't find a video with English subtitles, but I highly recommend checking it out. Thank you for reassuring me I wasn't overreacting. I wish you all well. Update 2. I'm back with an update. And wow, things got intense. So after my last post, my husband and I tried to prepare ourselves mentally for MIL's visit. We were firm in our decision. She wasn't staying with us. Period. BIL was still pushing for her to stay, but after a few more arguments, he finally agreed to help her find a hotel room close by. He booked it for her, and we thought that was that. But Mill wasn't done yet. She started calling us more frequently, pulling out every emotional manipulation tactic she could. One day, she was apologizing profusely, saying she just wanted to be close to her grandkids, and the next day she was accusing us of trying to isolate her from the family. The flip-flopping was exhausting, and it was messing with my head, but we stayed strong. My husband was a rock through all of this, and we kept reminding ourselves why we made this decision in the first place. To protect our kids, especially Cecilia. Fast forward to the week of Cecilia's birthday. Mill arrived in the UK with Bill, and everything seemed calm at first. They checked into the hotel, and Bill came over to help us set up for the party. Mill stayed behind at the hotel, which was a relief, honestly. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd accepted our boundaries and would be on her best behavior. Boy, was I wrong. The day before Cecilia's birthday, Mill showed up unannounced at our house. My husband was at work, and I was home with the kids. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, I felt my stomach drop. She looked at me with this determined expression and said she wanted to talk. I knew this wasn't going to be good, but I let her in, thinking maybe she just wanted to apologize in person or something. But as soon as she sat down, she launched into a tirade about Cecilia's name. Again. She kept repeating how Cecilia meant blind, how it was a name doomed to bring bad luck, and how she couldn't believe we would curse our daughter with such a name. I was stunned. It was like all the progress we thought we'd made meant nothing. I tried to keep my cool and told her as calmly as I could that this was exactly why we didn't want her staying with us. I said that we loved our daughter's name, and nothing she said would change that. But MIL wouldn't stop. She started crying, saying that she was only trying to protect Cecilia from a lifetime of misery. At this point, my son walked into the room, and I knew I had to shut this down. I told MIL that if she couldn't respect our decisions as parents, then she would have to leave. She looked at me like I'd slapped her, but I didn't back down. I picked up the phone, ready to call Bill to come get her, but she finally stood up and left, still crying. I was shaking after she left, and when my husband came home, I told him everything. He was furious, both at MIL for showing up uninvited and at BL for not keeping her in check. He called Bill right away, and they had a huge argument. Bill apologized for not keeping a closer eye on Mill, but he also defended her, saying she was just being a concerned grandmother. The next day was Cecilia's birthday, and honestly, I was dreading it. I didn't want Miles' negativity to ruin the day, but I also didn't want to cause a scene in front of all our friends and family. Mill and Bill showed up at the party, and she was surprisingly well behaved, for the most part. But then, during the cake cutting, Mile did something that left everyone speechless. As we were singing Happy Birthday, she suddenly blurted out, "Let's just call her Cece, okay? It's close enough and won't bring any bad luck." The room went silent. My husband and I were in shock. I couldn't believe she just tried to rename our daughter in front of everyone. I looked at my husband, and I could see the anger in his eyes. He was about to say something, but before he could, Bill stepped in and told Mill it was time for them to leave. She tried to protest, saying she didn't mean anything by it, but Bill was having none of it. He practically dragged her out of the house, and the rest of the party went on. But the mood was definitely different. I felt sick to my stomach that MIL had tried to pull that stunt on our daughter's special day. After the party, Bill called my husband to apologize again. He said he didn't know what else to do with Mill and that he was exhausted from trying to manage her. We told him that we appreciated him stepping in when he did, but that this had gone too far. We couldn't keep letting MIL push our boundaries like this. So now we're at a crossroads. We haven't spoken to MIL since the party, and honestly, I don't know if I want to. I'm not sure what the next step is, but one thing's for sure. We need to figure out how to protect our family from her toxic behavior. Thank you to everyone who's been supportive. I'll keep you posted on what happens next. Update 3. I'm back with another update, and this one has been tough to write. After MIL's behavior at Cecilia's birthday, my husband and I decided to take a break from any contact with her. We needed time to figure out how to move forward, and frankly, we didn't want her negativity anywhere near our kids. We explained this to Bill, who was frustrated but understood where we were coming from. He agreed to be the go-between for any communication with MIL for the time being. A few weeks passed and things were peaceful. No unexpected visits, no rude comments. Just the quiet we needed. Then, out of the blue, Bill called my husband with some news that completely blindsided us. Apparently, MIL had been telling people back home that we were neglecting our daughter. She'd spun this elaborate story about how we'd given Cecilia a cursed name and were refusing to let her see her grandchildren because of it. According to Mill, we were essentially punishing her for caring too much, and she was playing the victim card hard. When my husband heard this, he was livid. He immediately confronted Bill, asking if he knew anything about this, but Bill swore he was just as shocked as we were. He hadn't realized Mill had been talking to people behind our backs and promised to set the record straight. But the damage was already done. Within days, we started getting messages from family members in Latin America, all asking why we were being so cruel to Mill. People who barely ever spoke to us were suddenly very interested in our family dynamics, and it was clear Emil had been painting us as villains. This was the last straw for my husband. He told Bill that until Mill apologized publicly for spreading lies, she wouldn't be seeing any of us. He also sent out a message to the family group chat, explaining the real situation and how Emil had been harassing us over our daughter's name for over a year. We made it clear that we wouldn't tolerate any more of her toxic behavior. Most of the family seemed to understand, but there were still a few who were siding with MIL, either because they genuinely believed her or because they didn't want to upset her. It was a mess, and it felt like we were constantly defending ourselves against these baseless accusations. Then, just when we thought things couldn't get worse, we got a letter from MIL. It was handwritten, several pages long, and filled with her usual complaints about Cecilia's name. But what shocked us the most was the last part. MIL wrote that she had been in contact with a lawyer and was considering legal action to get visitation rights to see her grandchildren. I couldn't believe it. The idea that she would even think about taking us to court over this was beyond infuriating. My husband and I were both fuming, but we knew we had to be smart about how we handled this. We consulted a lawyer of our own who reassured us that MIL didn't have a leg to stand on, especially since we weren't denying her access to the kids outright. We were just setting boundaries for our own well-being. But the threat of legal action made it clear that MIL wasn't going to back down easily. We had to take this seriously, and that meant getting even more firm with our boundaries. We decided to cut off all contact with MIL for the foreseeable future. No calls, no visits, nothing. We told Bill that if Mael wanted to communicate with us, it would have to be through our lawyer. Bael wasn't happy about it, but he understood that MIL had crossed a line. It's been a few weeks since we made that decision, and things have been quiet on the MIL front. We're still dealing with some fallout from the family, but at this point, we're just focusing on protecting our kids and our sanity. It's heartbreaking that it's come to this, but we've realized that we can't let Meal's toxicity continue to affect our lives. My husband and I are stronger as a team because of this, and we're determined to keep our family safe from any more of MIL's drama. Thank you to everyone who's been supportive throughout this whole ordeal. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, we're just trying to move forward and focus on our kids.